totally agree there, and understand exactly where you're coming from. And it's funny, I often say the same reason. The biggest reason I'm involved in grassroots basketball is I was more of a football guy. Grassroots basketball offered me the opportunity to reach out to young men, and it is about, can I guide you around some of the mistakes that I made. That I don't know if that's good or bad, but that has a lot of it. I mean, I just want to share with young people on and off the court, how do you go about doing this better than I did it? There's no need of you fall in the same potholes, and I hear you saying some of the same things, and I'm excited about that because very seldom do I ever hear anybody talk about it. And I guess the way that I've always, and Doc, I hope I know you're listening there, is the way I've always interpreted that anytime we show any deficiency, it automatically disqualifies us from having any value. And that's one of the misconceptions. I think we pass this on to the young men, and that's why we don't trust people. They're going to find out that I flunked freshman English 3 times before I passed. What I mean? We just constantly looking at things that disqualify us. And we live in a society that if your resume and things don't line up right, well, you shouldn't have that job. You shouldn't be doing that. I mean, how do we deal with that, Doc? I mean, what do you think? Do you even understand? When we look at trust, and I think we just can't get away from that word because I think it's the key to unlocking the opportunity to play with people. I think one of the things we don't understand is when we start looking at trust, and I think kids and the parents too, and we'll have a lot of influence on it, being comfortable with their teammates' success. That's one of the things that seems to be extremely, I call it the team within the teams, and the cliques and things that are going on, and we're gonna freeze this guy out, and we're gonna play over here. Well, he got 30 last game, so we need to make sure it's not his turn to get 30, it's somebody else's turn to get 30. How does trust and teaching kids how to be there in a team concept, and then understand the value of the success of team propels, or when one boat rises, when the tide rises, all boats rise, I guess it says. Say it is. Mm-hmm.
which is the foundation part of being selfless.
Exactly. Yeah, and Keith, that's easy if you got and I'm going to go out on a limb and say this, and you may agree with it, not agree with. That's easy when you're talking about Division II prospects, low major prospects, 3-star and under players, 2-star and under players. But when we incorporate, and you coaching at the level, I'm not even sure, I haven't done my research how many pros you've coached, but I'm sure you coached 1 or 2. And
a lot of them.
yeah, I know a lot of. I know. I'm just being a little sarcastic. Dealing with these families that are coming and have seen their way to being in Chicago, like what's going on right there now at the Combine, and seeing their way into the draft, which is just a few days away. How have you been able to, and this is something that's been a real challenge in Texas, we'll say, how are you, and pretty much across the country, how are you able to manage, and college coaches are struggling with it, how are you able to manage all of their aspirations in the concept in which we're talking about? Because let them tell it it's totally contradictory to what they're trying to do.
For me, man, it's like I don't believe in entitlement, So that's first and foremost. So no kid or no parent is going to run my program.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, like I said at the beginning, it just comes with that hard speech of, hey, as a coach, if you're playing for, let's say you're playing for Jamie Dixon,
mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, which you as a parent feel is the right that your son, who you feel your son should be playing in front of, that really doesn't matter. The only decision that matters and the only opinion that matters in between those lines is Jamie Dixon's, because that's his program.
That's correct.
And you really don't know, like I tell parents, you don't know what I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
You might say, my kid's a hell of a scorer,
mm-hmm.
but I might not be looking for that. I might be looking for a hell of a defender.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't know what I'm looking for. So you can't tell me how to coach my team. Here's I give an example. Right now we have, on the team right now, and people are still trying to figure out how we're doing it,
mm-hmm.
we have 13 Division I players playing with us this year, this
mm-hmm.
summer,
That's right.
on one team.
On one team.
We have
it's a big number.
2 kids.
13.
and we have two kids, one committed to Villanova and one committed to the University of Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
We have a top 20 big man in the country in the 2019 class.
Mm-hmm.
We have 2 top 15 players in the 2020 class.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So apparently all of those kids can't start.
No, that's right. There's only 5
all
starters.
Can't start.
Right.
So you're talking about 13 kids, but those kids believe in what we bring to the table, and that's helping you become a better person and a better ball player, and they believe in being selfless. And I think that's just you have to get them at a
Selfless.
young age,
right?
To kind of instill those values in them. Because in anything you do in life, you're going to have to be able to work with somebody.
Right.
No matter what it is.
No
any profession. You can be an entrepreneur. You can have your own business. You can do whatever, but you're going to have to work with somebody in order to be successful.
That's exactly right. And we come back, we're going to talk more about the value and development of a holistic approach, trust, how Keith Stevens has done something that if nobody else listening knows, like I know how difficult it is to manage 13 Division I players on one team, not even to mention that probably 6 or 7 of them sound like 4- and 5-star guys. So, I mean, it's a crazy challenge. Great to hear. I've had Dr. Carr and Keith Stevens with the team takeover out of Washington, D.C. area right here with the Nike program. We're going to come back and talk more about the value in team chemistry, the holistic approach toward athletes, and how we find ourselves as men being able to bring something to this sports basketball world landscape that we're in that will go beyond just the game of basketball and the value in team chemistry. You have Dr. Joe Carr, known as the Roundtable Team Chemistry Expert. You have Keith Stevens with Team Takeover, Nike EYBL Team Takeover, here sharing his success with us, and yours truly, Alan Branch. We'll be back in 180 seconds with more Lone Star Sports Show. This particular segment was brought to you by Hardham Hotels. Take a look and listen, see how Hardham Hotels can lead your process of putting your money where you sleep. Back in 180 seconds with more Lone Star Sports Show. Hey, here we are back at the Lonestar Sports Show. Today's show is brought to you by FastMallSports.com. We got Dr. Joe Carr, team chemistry expert and developer of the Roundtable. Go do your research and learn more. You're going to hear more talking about him. But mainly we have Keith Stevens sharing with us about how he's achieved 13 Division I players on one team, multiple 4- and 5-star high major type prospects, all coexisted on one team. Talk to us a little bit more about that, Coach. I mean, there's some people listening that say that's totally impossible what you're doing. For long, anyway.
Yeah, man. I mean, nowadays it really is. But I just think, one thing I always express to the kids is no different than I'm asking them to work together. I make a lot of sacrifices for my staff, and that's from everything from giving them, more of a voice, responsibilities and and things like that. So, and we show teamwork by our communication. One of the things I do is I always take cell phones on the road because it forces the kids to have to communicate with each other. Or you're just going to be a mutant, you'll be all by yourself. But usually it forces them to communicate, because there is no technology where they can just text each other. So it's, hey, if we having breakfast at 7 o'clock, somebody's late, you got to go knock on that door and tell them, yo, man, you late. We're going to have to run because Coach told us to be down here at this time. So just trying to do things like that just to make them communicate. And the more you talk, and then you bring in a guy like Dr. Carr to, kind of nurture them and open them up to speaking about what they go through and who they are and what they're willing to sacrifice. It just makes the job easier for coaches.
That's funny you bring that up. One of the things that I've experienced, Keith, and Dr. Carr is probably familiar with that, a lot of times at the college level and probably some at the NBA level, but college level is what I'm really familiar with, is that some coaches have a little insecurity about bringing a Dr. Joe Carr in. Is this replacing me? Talk a little bit about how it was more of a tool or more something that aided me versus something that hindered or took my authority or I wasn't the head coach anymore or somebody. Talk about that and how you see that, or do you even understand where I'm coming from? Well, I know Dr. Carr does know what I'm talking about.
No, I definitely understand. So here's what I'll say. For me, it was definitely it was super helpful on many fronts. One being it gained even though I have trust from my parents, it gave me more trust and validated myself in the program more. Plus to bring someone of his knowledge and capacity and to kind of mentor their kids and try to see what their thought processes were and help them to talk about things that they're not going to talk about at home. So for that helped with the parents from the kids standpoint. To hear my story and the other coach's story and everybody sitting in the round table talking about the struggles and the things that we have, our weaknesses and family things that we went through, for them to recognize that we're just not coach, we're people just like them. And then for me as a coach, it just gave me some different values and some different way to look at things, that fitted me as a coach because, they had different terminologies or different philosophies that I can now use to make somebody else better or get a kid to understand what's right and wrong or how to communicate. So for me, it was definitely nothing that hindered or made me not want to bring them in because I was insecure. It actually made me more secure in myself because of just hearing the stories of everybody and knowing that we all sat in that room and opened up and, cried and laughed and everything, and we shared it together. It was a special moment.
Yeah, it definitely. Go ahead, Doc.
The other thing that we did, though, another thing that we did, Coach Stevens and I did too. I mean, it's good that we shared the stories and stuff like that, but we also showed them how to fight in basketball terms, because when you have 5-star, 4-star level players, they all want to score points. But Keith and I, we worked together and we created. We're not going to tell you all of our trade secrets on the phone, but we gave them some tools so that they weren't thinking about points as much. They would think about how they could help each other fight, how they could help each other play defense, and as a result of that, that became even more important than scoring points. You want to comment on that, Coach Stevens?
I think that's right. I mean, it became more so about how can we win together as opposed to how can I shine, as an individual. The thing was when we played on ESPN 3 times that last summer. And when each kid was interviewed, it was never about what they did. It was always reflected back to that time in that room, those 3 days that we spent learning about each other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't a script; that was real.
It was real.
Yeah.
No,
And it just showed them.
Right.
It just showed them what it was really about, to be about something bigger than yourself.
I got a question for Dr. Carr, and I also might want, or like for both of y'all to chime in, but I want to go with Dr. Carr first on this because we've talked about this for so long. It's been I guess to say a long time dream of mine. Dr. Carr, this holistic approach, and that's why I was so excited when you said you were doing this with Team Takeover, and then to find out for it to be as successful as it has been. Do you foresee us having a legitimate, this is for both of y'all, I want Keith's perspective on it, and I want to hear Dr. Carr first. Do you foresee us being able to implement and institute this mentality or the desire or I don't like to use the word curriculum necessary, but can we get this culture or climate to buy in or see the support or embrace what we're talking about here?
It's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge. I mean, I would like to, be utopian about it and say, yeah, but, you got to have open-minded people like Coach Stevens because, Coach Stevens, he's looking not just at how fast you can run and how high you can jump. He's also looking at, can I coach you hard? But the average coach that you look at, they think about talent first and character second. You got to treat both of them, with the same kind of respect. Until we change the culture of our coaches in terms of how we think and what we're looking for, I'm sad to say that we're going to be hunting talent first and character second, and as a result of that, we're going to be
disappointed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you think, Coach Stevens?
I totally agree, man. But I'll jump off a little bit, and I'll say this. I always tell people, and I said this in Sports Illustrated, and they asked me, what do I think what was the biggest change in Victor Oladipo this season that just passed? Him going from being a 15-point a game scorer in OKC to being an NBA All-Star in Indiana. And it was, and I tell people, it was three things that happened on the off season in no particular order. There was one, his trainers did a great job of changing his body. Mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. There was two, I think him being around an alpha like Russell Westbrook was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. But then more importantly than three, the mental challenges that he went through spending time with Dr. Carr and opening up about things that he's went through that he never confronted, and issues that he confronted, and learning leadership skills and learning how to communicate. I think those were the three most important things to his success this year. So it goes at any level you want, if you're willing to accept it.
But and you're right here in the thick of grassroots basketball and for a number of years, and I travel in the same circles, know all the same people. We're dealing with we'll be at NBA Top 100 camp in another week or two or whatever it is, and be looking at that environment and USA basketball and everything that goes with the UA Association. Is it possible that at some point that and I'm gonna kind of maybe put us on the hot seat a little bit, that Alan Branch and Keith Stevens can be enough of a billboard, enough on a soapbox of the complete perspective or the complete idea, the holistic approach towards young men and how we deal with them in the world, that's such a powerful world. Sports tourism as a whole is an $8 billion a year business, in which basketball represents roughly 38% of that. And that's before they ever get to college. The process is going on. And how can we be doing such a poor job with the holistic approach and the welfare of these young men that we have so much impact and so much time with? Do you think that there's a possible way that at some point 10 years from now this won't be such a unicorn type discussion? Keith?
That's a 50-50 chance that can happen. I think the biggest thing, and it's just hard because until you experience it and you open yourself up to it, it's hard to understand it. Mm-hmm. And then, I think when people recognize that the mental is just as important as physically. And that if you're prepared mentally, because let's be honest, the leader is pretty much dollars and cents nowadays. But if you're even more prepared mentally, that's going to lead to more dollars and cents long term. And I think if that will probably be the easiest way to get people to buy into it and listen to it and try to make a change. But I just think it's hard because everybody nowadays are short-term thinkers when it comes to these sports.
Right, and it's going to have to equate. It's going to have to equate to production and dollars and cents and success. And until we can demonstrate that, we're going to continuously fumble with the pieces on this. We're getting ready to go to one of our last breaks in this particular discussion. And when we come back, Dr. Carr is going to give us a little bit more of the components of what he sees and what he's able to observe, because the majority of Dr. Carr's career has been taking these kids at the college level and going on through the NBA and dealing with it. And I'd like to hear what he thinks about what could we do in grassroots basketball that potentially would alter some of the challenges that kids meet and run into at 18, 19, on into their 20s. But we come back from another 180 seconds. We got the Lonestar Sports Show here discussing on Basketball Thursday, team chemistry. In the middle of the NBA playoffs, going to have more of that going on. But right now we got Keith Stevens with Team Takeover, Nike EYBL runner-up champ. Right now I believe they're the only undefeated team on the EYBL circuit. Right now we have Dr. Joe Carr, the inventor and developer of Team Chemistry, Roundtable and the Perspective. Go Google him and find out more about him. Today's show is brought to you by FastSmallSports.com. This particular segment was brought to you by Fast Small Sports Fast Recruit. Go take a look and see how Fast Recruit is leading college coaches through the process, both on and off the court, in social media, in the scholastic year, and during the NCAA certified periods of how this tool of technology is being used to follow your prospect. Back in 180 seconds with more Lone Star Sports Show. Hey, here we are back here at the Lonestar Sports Show. Interesting break at the break right there, visiting with Keith Stevens and Dr. Joe Carr. One thing I can truly say is that we genuinely have a desire and a common goal, and we're going to continue to work at it. We're going to spend this last segment visiting with Dr. Carr about how he sees that. And he used an interesting phrase there, seems to be escaping me right now. But today's show is brought to you by Fast Small Sports. Dr. Carr, what was that phrase you came up with on when I asked you a question there? Team chemistry, what was that?
I don't know what phrase you're referring to, but what I want to say is that some of the things I think can happen at the grassroots level is just like we evaluate kids' left hand, right hand, their jump shot, and what their pivot foot and speed and quickness. I think we should, now start to evaluate a kid's readiness to be a good teammate. Mm-hmm. And I developed an instrument called the Ready. And the Ready is an instrument that looks at whether or not a kid is a giver, whether or not he's a taker, whether or not, he can handle tough coaching, whether or not he can handle mistakes or whether he can come back from mistakes, and also whether or not he can, listen to what the coach says efficiently and effectively. Mm-hmm. So I think at an early age, if parents were to not be afraid of a test or an assessment, mm-hmm. so that kids can be evaluated as to whether or not they have the potential to be good teammates, this would really help. Because if they don't have it, then, they could work with people like Coach Stevens, and Coach Stevens can help them get it. Mm-hmm. And the earlier they get exposed to developing those teammate skills, the easier they will be to kind of transition into being a good teammate. Now, the basketball skills, the jump shot, and the rebounding will catch up with the teammate skills, and now you'll have a complete player. Mm-hmm. I think that will be a great thing. I think the next thing that you could do, you could start, having roundtables at an early age where kids kind of get into these working groups and they get to know each other, and they get to know their teammates at an early age. So by the time they get to high school and college, they're ready to get on the big stage and to handle all the stress without all the jealousy and mm-hmm. all the backbiting. They're able to be good teammates at a high level, and which will then make them more attractive to coaches so they could get scholarships. And then even further, by the time, once they finish college, and they've got, the talent and they got the character, they'll be just a gem for a general manager. Mm-hmm. So I think the two things, number one, they need to get assessed at an early age in terms of their ability to be a good teammate. And then secondly, they need to participate in these group roundtable discussions so that they can be more assertive and not be afraid to be transparent and to be open. Mm-hmm. Because having those openness skills could be the difference maker as to whether or not a person, is a taker or whether or not he's a giver. And we all know, as being coaches out there, mm-hmm. if we got a kid who likes to give and likes to sacrifice stuff, then that's the kid. We're going to take that kid any day over a guy who wants to shoot all the time and not pass and not want to listen.
Yeah, beat the air out of the ball and shoot up all the balls, no doubt. Keith, you've been coaching grassroots basketball how many years?
I've been coaching altogether probably 25 years. Okay. 20, 25, something like that.
And I'm going to say in 25 years, and average of 5, you probably had over 100-plus Division I signees. Is that about right, you think? Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep.
And probably, I don't know, kind of success your program. And, well, I'm going to venture out to say you probably had somewhere between 4 to 7 NBA players, maybe a little more. Mm. All that sounds about right. Go ahead.
Yeah, yep. And Chicken Sego, we've had 7 NBA players.
7? There we go. I mean, and when you say, I've been doing it long enough to know that if you've been successful, and what I know about you, that's about what it equates to, 4 or 5 Division I players a year. And if you do it long enough at the level that you've been doing it, you're going to have some NBA players. All that makes sense. Let me ask this question to you, because we got a lot of young coaches that listen to this. As successful as you've been, what do you think, or how do you think this would translate to you in your process if you were in a situation where you had the understanding of the concept, grasp, and where you were with the thing 15 years ago versus to where you are? Would it increase your productivity? Would it have helped? I mean, what are your thoughts about that? Because you've been introduced to this, within the last 2 years, maybe? Mm.
Yep.
What are your thoughts about that?
I would say this. When we started the program 10 years ago, we had all these components are offered, I think it definitely helps. I think the biggest thing would be I would have had a better understanding of the kids that I was dealing with as a younger coach, and then, I think it also would have helped me prepare a lot of the kids in the earlier stages. I could have prepared them better for whatever they were going to come up against, be it college basketball, NBA basketball, corporate America, whatever. Just because of, well, like we talked about, the openness and just, the transparency of finding out if we're dealing with givers or takers and how to deal with them. And if you got a taker, to try to figure out what ways can I help them try to become a giver. And if I got a giver that's too much of a giver, how can I help him find a balance of, not giving to the point where it hurts him. So I think it would definitely help. I don't know to what magnitude, but I think for me, it could have helped me be a better mentor, a better coach, even a better parent, so that's how I look at it.
You're exactly right, Keith. You'd be surprised at the number of guys that I know that have been coaching for 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, 12 years, and, they get a player and, I say, hey, man, that kid, blah, 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 blah. Oh, really? I never knew that. I mean, they've hauled this kid around in and out of airports all over the place, practice him 2 or 3 times a week, and have no concept or idea and have and not even concerned about a concept or idea or any level of consciousness. Never even have any sense of responsibility. And as a tool, as a coach, I mean, somebody has been as successful as you have been, you feel like you potentially could have done a better job if you would have had these tools to work with at a young age process. And that's one of the biggest things. As much as we all sit there, we could go into the NBA stuff, man, look how the Warriors play and look how the Pistons played at one time. And now you're looking at Brad and Stevenson and the Celtics and, how they're sharing the ball and how they're going about the process. We could sit here and talk about that. But my real concern is that, to me, youth sports, and especially basketball is what we deal with, impacts a kid's ability to be successful so much beyond basketball and with the skill set and the things that he develops. And that's my real question is if we walk away from these 3 segments here on the Lone Star Sports Show with some type of concept or idea, and I think Doc has given us some ideas. I mean, there's one thing about these shows, they live on forever. They're on the Lone Star Sports Network on YouTube, and guys refer to them. You see the number of visits and watches or whatever they call them go up and up and up in different situations. Some of them are big splashes early on, and then something happens down the road, and one blows up and gets more looks and listeners. So, I mean, it lives, and I think that's really important, Doc, and I appreciate you coming and doing what you've done. I think with 3 guys with a common goal, demonstrated. I thought y'all did a great job on Carrie Champion's piece on team chemistry and explain the value of what that is there. And you get more people talking about it, you get more people accepting it, and I think we just have to continue to move forward. Doc, I mean, none of this would be possible without you. Won't you close us out and say where do we go from here? You talked about future roundtables, what some of those things will look like. What would happen if
first thing I want to give a shout out to Keith. I mean, I think the 3 things that he brings, to the coaching stable that I want everybody to really pay attention to. The 3 T's. He talks, he teaches, and he touches. He talks, he touches, and he teaches. And he those are great leadership qualities. And I think that's really good for grassroots coaches to understand, because sometimes, there are boundaries and some of these coaches, they do a lot of yelling, they do a lot of yelling, screaming, they do a lot of berating, and sometimes things get lost, and you're not connecting with the kid, and having that connection with the kid in terms of coaching them and hitting the right buttons during the course of the game is just as important as the player playing. And Keith, he brings that to the table. But as we move forward, I want everybody to kind of understand, like, there are 4 factors that are involved in chemistry and really important factors. First, you have to have a relationship with the players, and you have to have a sisterhood. you have to accept challenges. You have to be able to call each other out. You have to call yourself out periodically. You have to be able to recover from mistakes and bounce back quickly. And you have to be able to execute the coach's directions. We call that RARE, R-A-R-E. That's the basic definition of team chemistry. That's the basic definition of becoming a champion. It's hard to become a champion. It's hard to be rare. So the things that Coach Keith Stevens was talking about, you just can't wake up one morning and go out there and shoot jump shots and be ready. you got to really practice, handing yourself over to your teammates and handing yourself over to your coach. Thank you, Alan, for having us on. I really appreciate it. And we're glad to come back again, to talk about where to.
I got 60 seconds. Something just popped in my head, and I'm going a little non-protocol. They're going to get mad at me here because I'm going to go about 30 seconds over. Keith, what would happen if something like a normal association, EYBL association, dealing with roughly 24 teams, 240, 250 kids, implemented something of this nature into the process when we spend all this time with these kids every weekend, we travel all over the place? What would happen if that was implemented into something that looked like that? What would that be a fast track to impacting grassroots basketball? Yes, no. Elaborate a little bit.
It would. Here's what I'll say: if they implemented something like that, and they took the time, we know the resources are there.
Yeah.
But if they took the time to implement it, be it, you can take someone like Doc and you can pay them a salary. You can send them around, in the preseason or during the course of the season to meet with the teams. And that right there will kind of give these kids and these parents a different mindset before they get to the levels in which they can get lost, and then it's more costly.
That's right.
When you get them, the earlier you can get them, I think the better off they'll be. But I think if you said to every 17U team, this is part of the requirement on playing on my circuit, I think people would be surprised how much it would help, the landscape and the culture when you walk in these gyms.
No doubt. That's all I want to hear, Steve. That's worth my whole 45 minutes, what you just said. I've been telling Doc that, and this is going to live. They're running me out of this, into this break. Man, I look forward to seeing you in Charlottesville, and we're going to talk some more and visit about it. I don't know if you have a cup of coffee or ice cream cone there. They got a Brahms at the bottom of the hill there in Charlottesville. Baskin Robbins, is there. And we can go over there. Whatever your fancy is on me. Can't wait to see you and visit with you.
Sounds good.
Once again, I want to appreciate y'all and thank y'all for coming on, man. And y'all doing a lot for this world, man. Y'all take care. Have a good evening. Get the rest of this process knocked out. We're going to go look at this NBA stuff a little bit, but I enjoyed it spending time with y'all. Lone Star Sports Show. You had Dr. Joe Carr with the Roundtable, team chemistry expert, world-renowned expert, and the successful coach on the EYBL circuit, 25 years of preparing young men and moving them on to the college level. Keith Stevens with Team Takeover out of the Washington, D.C. area. You have yours truly, Alan Branch, Under Your Money, Lady Life, all bring it to you right here. All things sports, all things Texas, right here on the Lone Star Sports Network, Lone Star Sports Show. Be back in about 90 seconds with more Lone Star Sports Show. Hey, here we are at the Lonestar Sports Show. Giving it to you like this. All things sports, all things Texas. Great session there with the group, both Dr. Joe Carr and both Keith Stevens with Team Takeover out of the D.C. area and the success that they've had of mentoring young men. We're going to be providing everything we can provide to you to recap all the pieces that were given there during that process. But the conversation and the content and the nature of what we were there has the ability to impact and change a climate, change a culture, and being able to give something to young men is really, really, really needed. So we talk about young men, NBA playoffs, NBA combine going on in Chicago. Lots of surprising things going on with the measurements. Lots of things going on with everything that's there. Guys are being assessed. Guys are shorter than we thought they were. Their arms are longer than they thought they were. Didn't know they were that long. Measuring some athleticism. But overall, it's going pretty well from all my communication with the guys that I've talked to. They're hands-on. And I've had a chance to look at some of the analytics of what's going on. But let's go back over here and dive into these playoffs. Now, who would have thunk right now that, we 2-1 in one situation, and 1-1 in one situation, and 2-0 in the other situation. We want to kind of get away and say, well, Atlanta Celtics. Wow, it's showing the grassroots in me right there, isn't it? Yeah. Boston Celtics at the same time are a surprise, but it wasn't like we didn't think they were a good team. How can a team like Boston Celtics come through a situation that they have come through, deal with what they've dealt with, losing basically their two best players for the season, finishing out, and now embarking and having a great chance, a hands-up 2-0 lead on LeBron James, 7-game series. They go get 2. It's a 3-game series now, and we start back over. But the one thing about it is they still got to get 2, honey.
Right.
They don't have 2 yet. They still got to get 2. And, having to get 2 is a tremendous piece.
Tall task.
Tall task. It's not like the Celtics are all of a sudden just going to get real bad when they go over to Cleveland.
Right.
They were just really, really good in the Garden. Yep, home court. Yep, all of that. But at the end of the day, I mean, what are you thinking? What are your thoughts on this situation? Does LeBron turn his superpowers on? And I think he had 42 points the other night. He had triple-double, 42 points, and he had 12 assists and 10 rebounds. So he didn't play bad.
I just think Boston's the better team. Just looking at them defensively, how they can switch on everything, and then they exploit the mismatches Cleveland has. I just think from top to bottom, they're a better team.
Okay. I like to look at two things. When I watch these games, and when I watch a lot of games, I watch players, and obviously I watch basketball for a living. And when I get done watching, I always remember what I saw. Mm-hmm. And after I sleep on it, it becomes a lot more clarity on what I saw and what I thought. And then I like to go, in some instances, I have the luxury, and sometimes I don't have the luxury, of going and looking and seeing what the stats say. Obviously, watching these NBA highest level games, I do have the benefits of stats and a whole lot of analytics. But a lot of people like to look at the plus minuses. Well, plus minuses are good. I mean, it tells something. It tells the obvious to me. I'm not a big plus minus guy, but I like to look at rebounding. I like to look at shooting percentage. Attempts. To me, one of the most glaring pieces on the Celtics game with the Celtics in Cleveland game 2 was that, do you realize how many shots the Celtics missed in the last 3 to 4 minutes of that game? A lot. A lot. But they never wavered from their effort and their defensive effort. That continuously at the same time, obviously, Cleveland missed a lot of shots.
Right.
I think some of the shots that Boston missed, a little premature prosperity, never quite been to that level before.
Right.
some point blank layups, some balls that just rolled out, balls that should have gone in. But the tenacity that they got back, one of the things that kind of, like Dr. Carr was talking about earlier, their ability to respond, their ability to respond to mistakes, to recovery. He talks about rare all the time, and recovery is one of the biggest things in rare. You know, we all get knocked down. I love Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart's getting knocked down 1,000 times a game.
You see that play where he lost control of the ball, grabbed it, made a pass, he fell down, they made the layup, then he gets back up, he's hobbling, and then he steals a pass from the backcourt, then gets assist for layup.
And you know what the value, you know what the moral of that story is, honey, is? When you get knocked down, you got to get back up.
Right.
And Marcus Smart is one of the best getting knocked down, getting back up dudes in the NBA. It never seems to faze him, and he spends a lot of time on the floor. And, you know, he gets knocked down a lot, and he gets back up. And what my point being is, as far as game 2 was going on with Boston and Cleveland, it would have been very easily to get dejected with some of the shots that were being missed. You know, sometimes we get dejected with each other as a team.
Right.
When we see things, man, how did you miss that point blank layup? We needed that layup right now. So instantly, how fast can you respond back on transition defense and get where you're supposed to be and do what you're supposed to be doing at that point of the process? That just blows me away, how good of job they did that. That was the most glaring thing that I saw in game 2. Yeah, I saw all the X and O stuff you're talking about, everything you're talking about, switching everything, the versatility of the personnel and those pieces. But like I said, when you start looking at stats, you know, they're good. They're measurables. You know, stats are real numbers. They're not something that's invented out of the sky.
Right.
Or not somebody. Stats don't come from something that somebody feels, or I kind of felt this away. So they're real numbers. But if you don't have the appropriate eye test or the appropriate perspective on when you're looking at it, I think your ability to interpret and project through stats and see what you're talking about can be a little bit of a challenge. You say, well, I say all of that to say this, that when we move in and go and do what it is that we're doing in the process and working and going about the way we're going about things, I just feel like that what you see translates. It translates because when they're playing bad, they can be effective, and then when they're playing good, obviously you are effective. It's kind of like we say in golf, you're just as good as your worst shots. Good is going to take care of itself. How bad is your bad? Or how not so bad is your bad? How well do you recover from a bad experience, or when things don't go exactly your way? That's what tells me about this Boston team that Cleveland has their hands full. Obviously, the passerby or the casual fan would say, "Oh man, they up 2-0." Obviously, Cleveland has their hands full. Well, they got one of the most prolific scorers in the game right now.
Right.
So we're not going to, even though
a veteran team.
And a veteran that's, you know, played in multiple NBA playoff games and has been to 8 straight finals. 8 straight finals. I mean, so I mean, this is not the end of the world. I will agree with LeBron when he said the other day when they lost in game 1 that he was disappointed. He always plays to win the game. But he wasn't concerned to the point like, oh my God, what are we going to do? But what concerns me is that I feel like you're sitting in a situation where these guys' responses to challenges and their responses to adversity is going to keep them in a situation where now when they're not scoring the ball, when they're not playing well, when things aren't going super good, how good are they going to be? That's going to be, you know, to me, huge of how things operate and how things function. So, I mean, that's, you know, one of your biggest pieces that you look at this. When we go to break, we're going to come back and lock in and figure out what happened in Houston last night. I was really, really excited about it. Talk a little bit more about what the Mavericks are going to do. Looking at it, we all agree they got to draft a big. is it Jaron Jackson, I believe it is?
Yeah,
Michigan
Jaron
State guy?
Jackson.
Jaron
Michigan
Jackson.
State.
Yeah, he may be the guy. From all my communication and understanding that he may be the guy for the Mavericks. And if he's the answer, we love to have him here in Texas, and need a frontline guy that can come in and especially play a solid frontline role right off the bat, and then move into the fact of being able to show some leadership as he continuously develops as a frontline guy and all things he can do. I just don't know a lot about him right now, so it's not fair for me to sit here and project and say this and talk about him any more than the powers that be or the experts, as they like to call them, have projected him as a number 4, number 5 prospect, and available prospects that are in the 236 guys in the draft. He's the number 4 and 5 guy that most guys are saying. Be back in 180 seconds this time with a little bit more Lone Star Sports shows. We get down into the paint and feel ready to finish above the rim. We're going to come back and see what happened in Houston. How did Houston hit the switch and turn this thing around and make it look totally different than it looked on game 1? Back in just a little bit. Today's show is brought to you by FastSmallSports.com. Lone Star Sports Show right here at the Lone Star Sports Network. All things sports, all things Texas. Today's show is brought to you by FastSmallSports.com. Fast Small Sports leading us into the 21st century through the vehicle of technology in sports right now. Basketball is their main focus. But go take a look at FastSmallSports.com. Especially all you basketball coaches, basketball enthusiasts, college coaches, obviously, and NBA know who they are and what they are. And it's going to be kind of intriguing at what direction it goes in the future, moving and trickling all the way down to youth sports and how technology is going to be affecting the process. Go out to Drive Nation, the facility, and it's wired to do so many more things than just what it's doing. Is a huge piece there. So, but we come back here and start looking at. We're talking left here talking about eye tests and analytics and things. I mean, obviously, I don't even want to sit here and talk about the statistical differences between game 1 and game 2. Obviously, there was statistical differences. The main statistical difference was a score. But on the eye test, honey, and I'm a big believer in the eye test. I mean, I think statistics are nice, handy analytics are nice, handy little tools to kind of maybe measure what you saw, but you still know what you saw. I saw roughly a 6'5" man walk out the door.
Yeah.
Well, we measured. He might have been 6'4". He might have been 6'6".
Six,
right. But we get a general idea. Well, your eye test has got to be, to me, the number one thing, because there's so many things that are involved. Like, there's nothing on any of the analytics before I leave the East. There's nothing on. I've checked everything I possibly checked. Synergy. I've checked everything that all the statistical stuff that breaks down the game between the Celtics, and nobody measures two things. Nobody measures how many times Marcus Smart gets knocked down and gets up, and not on the stats. But if he doesn't get up, where would they be?
Right.
And another thing it doesn't measure he was getting ready to put the South Dallas sleeping pill on J.R. Smith when he pulled that move, that dirty move there. That doesn't show up either.
No.
And see, it's funny I bring that up. That's the thing that, is that we often say you can measure a lot of things about a man, but evaluating what's on the inside of him, evaluating what's in his heart, and evaluating where his head really is so important. I think so many young athletes get disappointed at how things end up because they know how talented they are. They know how talented they've been told that they are. But it's like a lot of NBA scouts and player personnel guys will ask me, well, Branch, we've seen this. We obviously know he can play. He's athletic, can do this right here. We want to know one thing. Does he love the lifestyle or does he love the game? And we live in a climate where people want to live and act and function in a particular way. Guys can't wait to get to the club. They can't wait to jump on the plane and fly to L.A., fly to Vegas for that. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But when they start wavering on what it is that you profess to do for a living, or what it is that you're receiving a scholarship and a cost attendance stifling on, and what you profess to don't want taken away from you, or is it the image when you walk through the club door that everybody recognizes this is who you are?
Would you say if you love the lifestyle more, that impacts development?
It definitely impacts. That's one of the first things. That's a very astute analysis of yours. Is that's the last thing they want to do is work on their game.
Right.
You know what it always makes me do. Remember, you see this. I imagine it still goes on because I've heard Snoop talk about it in his era, and it's always going on. You get these 6'10", 6'11" guys that don't make it, not good enough for whatever reason, don't work hard enough at it. They're still going around tricking the people at the VIP lines and the club. The dudes are still walking around trying to get somebody, let them in the club for free, and misrepresent themselves as some guy that's playing. And some of these guys are so serious about it. They know all the schedules of what's going on, and they just kind of roll up there and dudes see them. And
yeah, that still goes on.
Still goes on.
Still goes on. That still goes on.
And that's what I mean by the love of the lifestyle. They just want to get in the club. They just want people to kind of see them a certain way and treat them a certain way. And, come Monday morning, he's not going to be at anybody's workout, not going to be at anybody's practice. He's not going to be doing anything related to basketball. But they love the 5-star treatment, the be coming across in that kind of a way. And, it definitely impedes guys' development. There's been a lot of really interesting conversation that we've been involved with here this evening, and I really appreciate it. And but we've got to find our way at being able to look at situations where measuring guys' true passion for what it is they do and what they want, and then equipping guys and understanding how do you pursue your passion. Are we creating an environment that's conducive to developing players, for developing them and developing their passion and allowing them to become the most and best that they can be? And it has to come down to a holistic approach toward things that they're doing. So, I mean, that's the biggest and biggest part of it. But we look back and say, Brent said he's going to talk about what did he see different. I mean, it was obvious. The Rockets stopped dribbling the ball, start sharing the ball, start playing more defense. They did not solve the defensive liability that James Harden appears to bring to the team. But what they did was they put so much more stress on the Golden State Warriors defense by the way they chose to play.
Right.
When can good offense replace okay defense? When you dominate the possession. You see it in football. You say, well, what are you talking about? You see it in football. You ever seen a team that was so offensively dominant that they kept the ball? The time of possession was totally warped. We don't measure that a lot in basketball. Mm-hmm. We don't measure how. If we measure efficiency, we always measure in basketball time versus number of baskets scored.
Right.
So they can score this many baskets. They average scoring this many baskets in a half. In 24, it's 48 minutes or whatever, however you want to look at it there. And we know we're dealing with two of the most efficient scoring teams in the year. They were 1 and 2. Both of them averaged 101.7 and 100.9 or somewhere. It was less than a 1 point difference in their efficiency over a 48 minute window. And when you look back at that, that's a huge piece. That's a huge piece to be able to sit and say that that's what you got done, that's what you did, and you operate and function in this kind of a way. But what you saw that changed the whole game for the Rockets is that they match the efficiency and ball movement and sharing and put so much stress onto the Warriors defensively that when's the last time? Let's go back to, okay, you see something with the eye test, let's go back to a glaring deal. And you tell me if you agree, if you saw the same thing. Lady Life watches the game. She sits like she doesn't know what's going on, but she's checking it out and probably get back around her buddy's boy and get to be the expert. I'd like to be a fly on the wall. Some of that. You got all the terminology and everything now. Y'all don't know nothing about no basketball. But here's something that jumps out at you. When's the last time you saw Golden State only have 2 players in double figures?
It's been a
kind of.
If I ever, no, I don't recall.
You don't recall it, yeah, right. We don't recall it.
In the past 3 to 4 years,
right?
I mean, since they made their run, I haven't seen nothing like that.
Well, I mean, it goes all the way back through. If you just consistently look at it, and I've researched it, it just doesn't happen very much at all unless they blow somebody. I mean, it just doesn't happen. You know? I don't care if everybody gets 12 points.
Yeah,
it's still you're
but
not
2 players on that team. Well, just 2 players to get double figures. That's
right. Now, I mean, you can't. Come on, Golden State. You can't have Andrew Iguodala with playing 27 minutes with 5 points. Yeah. And 6 rebounds. So apart. You can't have Draymond Green. Draymond Green, while you woofing and buffing and raising all that hell and going, and you show back up with 6 points and 6 rebounds. With your 38 minutes, damn near the whole game. Well, not quite the whole game, but a lot of the whole game. Majority of the game. Played 38 minutes. Nobody played 37 minutes. Nobody played more minutes than Draymond Green, and he was the least productive of the guys. 6 points, 6 rebounds. They won't get it, Coach. No, I won't get it.
Can't win basketball games.
No, I mean, they can't even be who they are.
Right.
We know winning basketball. They got winning basketball games now. They're playing in the Western Conference Final Championship and supposedly what people say may be the toughest side of the NBA. They were the most efficient team in the NBA this year. They've won multiple championships now. Haven't done a back-to-back yet. And they've been sitting right there where they are. 6 points, 6 rebounds, Coach. There's a problem. Played 37 minutes. Klay Thompson, 8 points. 8 points. Rebound. Yeah, we will get a surprise if if we keep on fixing this situation. If they don't defensively fix the situation where now you're gonna play Stephen Curry 34 minutes, and on the defensive side of things, we're gonna run guys and pound guys at him every time and look for a way. That's where we're gonna start our point of attack. No different than they're trying to start their point of attack, attacking James Harden on ball screen situations. It's not gonna, it's just not gonna get it. No. Zaza Pachulia played 5 minutes and had 5 points and 2 rebounds. Come on now, Cody, do the math.
Yeah.
Sean Livingston played 18 minutes and had his 5 points. So you got to come up, balance this thing out. Put my boy in. This is the guy I found, Jordan Bell. Jordan Bell will go get the rebound. Yeah. Jordan Bell played 5 minutes. Jordan Bell had 3 rebounds.
He's productive in those
minutes.
Productive.
Come on,
productive in those minutes.
And I know guys like Steve Kerr, I know Brown, those guys are sitting there saying the same thing I'm saying. Except they said it 24 hours ago before they went to bed that night.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I just now started looking at it and really breaking it down right here on the show in the midst of everything that's going on. So, we come back. Y'all have a blessed and safe weekend. Had a great Mother's Day weekend last week. You guys be safe out there. We're going to have plenty going on. We'll be around for one day next week, and then we'll go into our Labor Day vacation. Well, vacation for Undue Money the Prince with 5 State basketball hoop report and TexasBoysBasketball.com with Alan Branch. Labor Day, Memorial Day is never a vacation. No. It means a whole lot of basketball. We get a little break on Monday. We come back, we half tired, sit down and drink your favorite beverage and get you a barbecue sandwich and try to get ready to tackle it the next week and get ready to be time to get it on now. There's going to be much break between now and August, Coach.
Nope.
Roll your sleeves up. We're going to try to get in right here at the Lonestar Sports Show. I hadn't said that one in a long time. All things sports, all things. We know it is Basketball Thursday. Y'all have a good weekend. See you next week.